The rejection. Sarah Martinez had always been different from other girls in her small Texas town. While her classmates spent weekends at the mall or parties, she was at the shooting range with her grandfather, a Korean War veteran who taught her that precision wasn't just about hitting targets. It was about discipline, patience, and respect for the power she held in her hands. The morning she received her dismissal letter from Marine Scout Sniper School, Sarah sat in her tiny apartment near Camp Pendleton, staring at the official document that shattered 3 years of preparation. The words blurred through her tears. Due to failure to meet minimum physical standards during the final qualification phase, Corporal Martinez is hereby dismissed from the Scout Sniper School program. It wasn't true, and everyone knew it. Sarah had outperformed most of her male counterparts throughout the grueling 8-week program. Her marksmanship scores were among the highest in the class. She could remain motionless in a sniper hide for 12 hours without shifting position. Her field craft was impeccable, and her ability to read wind patterns and calculate bullet trajectory in challenging conditions had impressed even the most hardened instructors. But Sarah was a woman in a program that had never graduated a female sniper, and some people intended to keep it that way. The discrimination hadn't been subtle. From day one, Gunnery Sergeant Rex Morrison had made it clear that he believed women had no place in elite combat roles. His comments during training were carefully worded to avoid official complaints, but the message was unmistakable. He assigned her extra duties that cut into her study time. He questioned every decision she made during field exercises, often in front of other students. When she excelled despite his obstacles, he found new ways to undermine her confidence. The breaking point came during her final stalking exercise. Sarah had successfully completed an impossible shot, eliminating a target at 847 yards in 15 Mach crosswinds while remaining undetected for 6 hours. It was a textbook performance that should have guaranteed her graduation. Instead, Morrison claimed she had been spotted by observers, a lie that 3 other instructors quietly disputed but wouldn't officially challenge. Sarah's dismissal was based on this fabricated failure, supported by Morrison's evaluation report that painted her as lacking the mental toughness required for sniper operations. The irony wasn't lost on her. The same mental toughness that had carried her through months of harassment was being questioned by the man who had orchestrated it. As she packed her gear, Sarah's bunkmate, Corporal James Chen, approached her with obvious discomfort. Chen had witnessed Morrison's campaign against Sarah, but had remained silent, afraid of jeopardizing his own career. Now, seeing her pack, his conscience finally stirred. "This isn't right, Martinez," he said quietly. "Everyone knows you're the best shot in the class. Morrison's been gunning for you since day one." Sarah paused in her packing. "Tell me something I don't know, Chen." "You should fight this. File a complaint with the Inspector General. I'll back you up." Sarah appreciated the offer, but she understood military politics better than Chen realized. Morrison was a decorated veteran with 22 years of service and connections throughout the Marine Corps hierarchy. Her word against his would be career suicide, and they both knew it. Besides, by the time any investigation concluded, her class would have graduated and moved on. The moment would be lost. "Thanks, but no," Sarah replied. "I'm not going to give them the satisfaction of watching me beg." What Sarah didn't tell Chen was that she had already formulated a different plan. If the Marine Corps wouldn't recognize her abilities through official channels, she would prove them wrong in the field. Her dismissal from sniper school didn't erase her marksmanship skills or her tactical knowledge. It only meant she would have to find another way to use them. 3 days after her dismissal, Sarah reported to her new assignment, a supply company at Camp Lejeune. It was considered a punishment detail, a dead-end job designed to make her question her decision to stay in the Corps. Her commanding officer, Captain Williams, made it clear that her sniper school failure was noted in her record, effectively blacklisting her from any future special operations consideration. But Sarah didn't let the setback destroy her focus. During her off-duty hours, she continued training. She studied advanced ballistics texts, practiced shooting at local ranges, and maintained the physical conditioning that had carried her through sniper school. She also began researching deployment opportunities, looking for ways to transfer to units heading to active combat zones. Her opportunity came 6 months later when the 2nd Marine Expeditionary Unit received orders for Afghanistan. Sarah volunteered for the deployment, specifically requesting assignment to a forward operating base where her supply expertise would be needed. What she didn't mention in her transfer request was her intention to prove that Morrison's evaluation had been wrong. The day before her deployment, Sarah received an unexpected visitor. Master Sergeant Rodriguez, one of her instructors from sniper school, had driven 3 hours to see her. Rodriguez was one of the few instructors who had openly praised Sarah's abilities, though he had been powerless to prevent her dismissal. "I heard about your deployment," Rodriguez said as they sat in a coffee shop near the base. "I want you to know that not everyone agreed with Morrison's decision." Sarah nodded, unsurprised but grateful for the validation. "I also want to give you something," Rodriguez continued, sliding a small notebook across the table. "These are my personal notes on advanced shooting techniques and field tactics, things we don't teach in the regular curriculum." Sarah opened the notebook and saw pages of detailed diagrams, mathematical formulas, and tactical observations written in Rodriguez's precise handwriting. It was a treasure trove of knowledge accumulated over 15 years of combat experience. "Why are you giving me this?" Sarah asked. Rodriguez leaned forward, his voice serious. "Because talent like yours doesn't come along often, and it shouldn't be wasted because of one man's prejudice. Morrison may have prevented you from earning the sniper title officially, but he can't take away what you know or what you're capable of." As Sarah prepared for deployment, she carried Rodriguez's notebook alongside her standard gear. She had spent months feeling defeated and questioning her abilities. Now, with renewed purpose, she was ready to prove that her dismissal from sniper school had been the Marine Corps' loss, not hers. Her last night in the States, Sarah called her grandfather. At 83, he was the only family member who truly understood her military ambitions. Most of her relatives thought she was crazy for choosing such a difficult path, especially after her recent setback. "Mijo," her grandfather said in his gravelly voice, "sometimes the strongest steel comes from the hottest fire. What doesn't break you will make you sharper." Sarah smiled, remembering all the hours they had spent together on the range when she was growing up. Her grandfather had taught her that shooting wasn't about anger or aggression. It was about calm, calculated precision. Those lessons had carried her through sniper school and would guide her through whatever challenges lay ahead. As her plane lifted off from California, Sarah looked down at the country she was leaving behind. Somewhere below, Gunnery Sergeant Morrison was probably congratulating himself on keeping women out of his elite unit. He had no way of knowing that his actions had only strengthened Sarah's resolve and that the skills he had tried to suppress were about to be tested in the most demanding classroom of all: combat. The airplane's engines hummed steadily as Sarah settled in for the long flight to Afghanistan. She closed her eyes and visualized the shooting fundamentals her grandfather had taught her years ago: breath control, trigger squeeze, follow-through. In a few weeks, those fundamentals would become more than training exercises. They would become tools of survival in a war zone where precision could mean the difference between life and death. Sarah had no way of knowing that her opportunity to prove Morrison wrong would come sooner than expected, or that when it did, the stakes would be higher than she could possibly imagine. For now, she focused on the mission ahead and the chance to finally demonstrate what a dismissed female sniper could accomplish when given the opportunity to serve. The opportunity forward. Operating Base Chapman sat like a concrete and steel island in the hostile landscape of eastern Afghanistan. Sarah had been stationed there for 3 months, officially managing supply logistics for the 400 Marines and soldiers who called the base home. Unofficially, she had been studying every aspect of combat operations, learning the rhythms of war, and waiting for her chance. The base's location made it a frequent target for Taliban fighters who controlled much of the surrounding terrain. Rocket attacks were common, and the perimeter was constantly probed by enemy scouts. What made Chapman particularly vulnerable was the high ground that overlooked the base from 3 sides, perfect positions for enemy snipers who had already claimed the lives of 2 American soldiers. Lieutenant Colonel Barnes, the base commander, was a practical man who cared more about results than military politics. When Sarah approached him with a proposal to help with the sniper threat, he listened despite his initial skepticism. "Corporal Martinez," Barnes said from behind his desk, which was covered with tactical maps and intelligence reports. "Your personnel file shows you were dismissed from Scout Sniper School for performance deficiencies." Sarah had expected this response. "With respect, sir, my dismissal was based on a single evaluation by an instructor who had documented issues with female Marines in combat roles. My marksmanship scores and overall performance were among the top in my class." Barnes studied her personnel file more carefully. The contradiction between her recorded achievements and her dismissal was obvious to anyone looking at the data objectively. Her shooting scores were exceptional, her physical fitness ratings were superior, and her tactical knowledge assessments were nearly perfect. "Even if that's true," Barnes continued, "you're not a qualified sniper. I can't just hand you a precision rifle and send you into combat." "I understand that, sir, but I am qualified to spot for your designated marksman. I can read terrain, calculate distances, and identify threats. Your current teams are stretched thin, and you need every advantage against these enemy snipers." What Sarah didn't mention was that she had been secretly studying the enemy's patterns for weeks. During her supply runs around the base, she had observed the angles of incoming sniper fire, noted the timing of attacks, and identified likely hiding positions in the surrounding hills. She had created detailed range cards for defensive positions around Chapman, calculating distances and wind factors for dozens of potential target locations. Barnes was quiet for a long moment, weighing his options. The enemy sniper threat was escalating, and his official counter-sniper team consisted of only 2 qualified Marines who were exhausted from constant deployments. Adding Sarah as a spotter would free up resources and provide additional expertise, even if it was unofficial. "All right, Martinez. I'll give you a trial run. You'll work with Sergeant Torres on the next counter-sniper mission. But understand, this is observation and spotting only. You are not authorized to engage targets." Sarah nodded, hiding her satisfaction. Getting into the field was all she needed. Once there, she could prove her capabilities. Sergeant Miguel Torres was the base's senior designated marksman, a quiet professional with 6 years of infantry experience and 2 previous deployments. When Barnes told him about his new spotter, Torres was skeptical, but willing to give Sarah a chance. Their first mission came 2 days later, when intelligence reported enemy sniper activity in the hills north of the base. Torres and Sarah moved out before dawn, carrying observation equipment and Torres's M110 semi-automatic sniper system. The climb to their observation post took 3 hours through rocky terrain that offered little concealment. Sarah's physical conditioning, maintained throughout her months at Chapman, allowed her to keep pace with Torres, despite carrying her share of equipment. They established their position in a carefully selected hide that provided excellent views of the suspected enemy territory while keeping them invisible from below. For 6 hours, they watched and waited. Sarah used her spotting scope to methodically scan the hillsides, looking for any sign of enemy activity. Her patience, developed during her grandfather's hunting lessons and refined at sniper school, served her well. She didn't shift position unnecessarily, maintained noise discipline, and kept detailed notes of everything she observed. Torres was impressed, despite himself. Sarah's fieldcraft was professional, and her observations were intelligent and detailed. She identified several potential sniper positions that he had missed and demonstrated a thorough understanding of the tactical situation. At 14:30 hours, Sarah spotted movement in a rocky outcrop approximately 800 meters away. Through her scope, she could see a figure in traditional Afghan clothing positioning what appeared to be a rifle. "Contact," she whispered to Torres. 800 meters, 2 o'clock from the large boulder." Torres swung his rifle toward the indicated position and confirmed the target through his scope. The enemy sniper was partially concealed, but clearly preparing to engage the base below. "I've got him," Torres said quietly. "Wind?" Sarah consulted her notes and observed the vegetation between their position and the target. 3 to 5 miles per hour, left to right. Temperature is 78 degrees. Torres made the necessary adjustments to his scope and prepared for the shot. At that moment, Sarah noticed something that made her blood run cold. "Wait," she whispered urgently. "There's a second shooter. 100 meters left of your target behind the fallen tree." Torres shifted his aim and confirmed the second threat. 2 enemy snipers working together represented a significant escalation in their tactics. While he engaged one target, the other would likely escape and continue threatening the base. "I can only engage one at a time," Torres said quietly. "By the time I transition to the second target, he'll be gone." Sarah understood the tactical problem immediately. Standard procedure would be to call in artillery or air support, but that would take time they didn't have. The enemy snipers were in perfect position to attack a supply convoy scheduled to arrive at the base within the hour. Without conscious thought, Sarah reached for Torres's backup rifle, an M14 enhanced battle rifle with a medium-range scope that had been designated for emergency use. The weapon wasn't a precision sniper rifle, but it was accurate enough for the shot she was contemplating. "Martinez, what are you doing?" Torres asked, though his attention remained focused on his primary target. "Giving you backup," Sarah replied, checking the rifle's zero and making mental calculations for the range and wind conditions. Torres should have ordered her to put the weapon down. Sarah was not authorized to engage enemy targets, and allowing her to do so would violate direct orders from the base commander. But in that moment, with 2 enemy snipers preparing to attack American forces, Torres made a battlefield decision based on tactical necessity rather than bureaucratic protocol. "You've got the left target," he said quietly. "We engage on my count." Sarah settled into her shooting position, controlling her breathing and finding her natural point of aim. The target was at the edge of the M14's effective range, requiring precise calculation and perfect execution. She considered the bullet's trajectory, the wind effects, and the target's partial concealment. 3, 2, 1, Torres counted quietly. Both rifles fired simultaneously. Sarah's target dropped immediately, struck center mass by her carefully placed shot. Torres's target fell a split second later. The counter-sniper mission was complete, but Sarah's unauthorized engagement would have consequences that neither Marine could predict. As they prepared to move from their position, Torres looked at Sarah with a mixture of respect and concern. "That was a hell of a shot, Martinez. But you just opened a can of worms that's going to be hard to close." Sarah understood the implications of her actions. She had directly disobeyed orders by engaging an enemy target, regardless of the tactical justification. When they returned to base, she would face disciplinary action that could end her career. But as they began their journey back to Chapman, Sarah felt a sense of completion she hadn't experienced since her dismissal from sniper school. In the space of one precisely placed shot, she had proven everything that Morrison had claimed she couldn't do. She had operated under pressure, engaged an enemy target at extended range, and contributed to the successful completion of a critical mission. The walk back to base took 4 hours, giving Sarah time to consider what would happen next. Lieutenant Colonel Barnes would demand a full report of the mission, and Torres would be obligated to include her unauthorized engagement in his account. The best-case scenario would be a reprimand and transfer. The worst case could involve court-martial proceedings. As Chapman came into view in the distance, Sarah realized she wasn't concerned about the personal consequences of her actions. For the first time in months, she felt like a Marine again, rather than a supply clerk with unrealized potential. Whatever happened next, she had demonstrated that Gunnery Sergeant Morrison's evaluation had been wrong. The enemy snipers who had threatened American lives were eliminated, and the convoy arrived safely at the base later that evening. Sarah had finally proven her worth as a combat Marine, even if the cost of that proof remained to be determined. That night, as she lay in her bunk waiting for the inevitable summons to report to the commander's office, Sarah thought about her grandfather's words about the strongest steel coming from the hottest fire. Tomorrow would bring consequences, but it would also bring opportunities she couldn't yet imagine. The vindication. The knock on Sarah's door came at 0600 hours, exactly 12 hours after her unauthorized engagement of the enemy sniper. As expected, she was ordered to report immediately to Lieutenant Colonel Barnes's office for a formal debriefing of the previous day's mission. When Sarah entered the command post, she found Barnes waiting alongside two unexpected visitors, Master Sergeant Rodriguez from her old sniper school and, to her shock, Gunnery Sergeant Morrison himself. The presence of her former instructor suggested that word of her actions had already reached higher command levels. Barnes gestured for Sarah to sit across from his desk while the two visiting NCOs remained standing. The tension in the room was palpable, and Sarah prepared herself for the disciplinary action she knew was coming. "Corporal Martinez," Barnes began formally, "Sergeant Torres has filed his mission report regarding yesterday's counter-sniper operation. According to his account, you engaged an enemy target without authorization, using a weapon you were not qualified to operate in a combat role." Sarah maintained her military bearing. "That is correct, sir. Do you have anything to say in your defense?" Sarah had rehearsed this moment throughout the sleepless night. She could offer tactical justifications, explain the time-sensitive nature of the threat, or point out that her actions had saved American lives. Instead, she chose honesty. "Sir, I violated direct orders when I engaged that target. There is no excuse for that violation, regardless of the tactical situation or the outcome of my actions." Morrison stepped forward, his expression unreadable. "What you did was reckless, Martinez. You put yourself and your spotter at risk with an unauthorized engagement, using a weapons system you haven't been trained on." Sarah looked directly at Morrison for the first time since her dismissal from sniper school. "With respect, Gunnery Sergeant, I was trained on the M14 platform during my initial marksmanship instruction. The shot was well within my capabilities, and the tactical situation demanded immediate action." "Your capabilities?" Morrison's voice rose slightly. "You failed sniper school because you lacked the mental discipline required for precision shooting under pressure. Yesterday's action proves that assessment was correct." Before Sarah could respond, Master Sergeant Rodriguez stepped forward with a folder in his hand. "Actually, Gunny, that's not entirely accurate." Rodriguez opened the folder and spread several documents across Barnes's desk. Sarah recognized them as her original performance evaluations from sniper school. Not the summary report that Morrison had filed, but the detailed daily assessments completed by all the instructors. "These are the unedited instructor evaluations from Corporal Martinez's time in sniper school," Rodriguez explained. "I've spent the last month reviewing them as part of a program assessment for Headquarters Marine Corps." Barnes picked up the documents and began reading. His expression changed as he processed the information. Rodriguez continued. "According to these evaluations, Corporal Martinez scored in the top 5% of her class in marksmanship, fieldcraft, and tactical knowledge. 4 different instructors recommended her for graduation. Only one instructor filed a negative assessment." Morrison's face flushed red. Those evaluations don't tell the whole story. Her performance during the final stalking exercise was deficient. Actually, Rodriguez replied calmly, I've reviewed the observer reports from that exercise as well. 3 independent observers confirmed that Martinez was never detected during her approach, and her target engagement was textbook. The discrepancy in your report has raised questions at the highest levels of Marine Corps Training Command. Barnes looked up from the documents, his expression serious. Gunnery Sergeant Morrison, these evaluations paint a very different picture than what appears in Corporal Martinez's official record. How do you explain this discrepancy? For the first time since Sarah had known him, Morrison appeared uncertain. Sir, there were concerns about Martinez's suitability for sniper operations that went beyond simple test scores. What kind of concerns? Barnes pressed. Morrison hesitated, clearly realizing that any honest answer would reveal his prejudice against women in combat roles. Concerns about unit cohesion and readiness, sir. Rodriguez closed the folder with a sharp snap. Colonel, with your permission, I'd like to explain why Master Sergeant Torres and I drove 18 hours to get here. Barnes nodded, sensing that the conversation was moving in an unexpected direction. Yesterday's engagement has been reviewed by Marine Corps Special Operations Command. The enemy snipers that Corporal Martinez and Sergeant Torres eliminated were not random Taliban fighters. Intelligence reports confirm they were part of a specialized sniper team responsible for 17 American casualties over the past 6 months. These were highly trained marksmen who had been operating with near impunity in this region. Sarah felt her heart racing as Rodriguez continued. The precision and coordination of yesterday's engagement has been noted at the division level. Both shots were confirmed kills at extended range under challenging conditions. The tactical decision-making and execution were exemplary. Barnes leaned forward in his chair. What exactly are you telling me, Master Sergeant? Rodriguez pulled another document from his folder. Corporal Martinez is being recommended for commendation for her actions yesterday. More importantly, Marine Corps Headquarters is reopening her sniper school case based on the evidence of discriminatory evaluation practices. Morrison's face had gone pale. Sir, this is highly irregular. Chain of command protocols have already been followed, Rodriguez interrupted. This investigation was initiated by the Inspector General's office based on a formal complaint filed 6 months ago by an unnamed instructor who witnessed evaluation irregularities. Sarah realized that someone from her original class had finally found the courage to report Morrison's discriminatory behavior. The timing of the investigation coinciding with her combat action was purely coincidental, but it created a perfect opportunity for vindication. Barnes stood and walked to the window overlooking the base. After a long moment, he turned back to face the group. Gunnery Sergeant Morrison, you're dismissed. Report to the base communications center and await further orders from your commanding officer. Morrison left the room without another word. His 22-year career effectively over. Sarah felt no satisfaction in his downfall, only relief that future female Marines wouldn't face the same obstacles she had encountered. Rodriguez approached Sarah with a document he had kept separate from the others. Corporal Martinez, this is an official letter from the Commandant of the Marine Corps. You're being offered the opportunity to return to Scout Sniper School for retraining and graduation. Your previous dismissal is being expunged from your record. Sarah stared at the letter, hardly believing what she was reading. After months of feeling like an outcast, the Marine Corps was offering her everything she had originally wanted. But as she considered the offer, Sarah realized something had changed. She was no longer the young Marine who had simply wanted to prove herself worthy of the sniper title. Her experiences at Chapman had shown her that she could contribute to the mission in ways that went beyond traditional roles and expectations. Sir, Sarah said, looking up from the letter, I appreciate this opportunity more than I can express, but I'd like to propose an alternative. Barnes raised an eyebrow. What kind of alternative? I'd like to remain here at Chapman and work with your counter-sniper teams. Not as a traditional sniper, but as a designated marksman and instructor. The threat here is ongoing, and I believe I can make a difference." Rodriguez smiled, recognizing the maturity and confidence in Sarah's response. "That's exactly the kind of thinking the Corps needs, Martinez. Leaders who can see beyond personal advancement to mission requirements." Barnes nodded approvingly. "I'll support that request, but only if you accept a promotion to sergeant and formal recognition as a precision marksman. Your actions yesterday earned you the right to operate in that capacity." 6 months later, Sergeant Sarah Martinez had established herself as one of the most effective counter-snipers in Afghanistan. Her innovative tactics and exceptional marksmanship had eliminated 12 enemy snipers and significantly reduced the threat to American forces in the region. More importantly, she had begun training other Marines in advanced precision shooting techniques, sharing the knowledge that Rodriguez had given her and adding insights gained from her combat experience. The enemy sniper threat that had once terrorized forward operating base Chapman had been virtually eliminated, and Sarah's hit count, the measure of confirmed enemy kills that Morrison had dismissed as unattainable, stood at 17 confirmed targets. Each number represented an enemy fighter who would never again threaten American lives, and each engagement had been executed with the precision and professionalism that her grandfather had taught her years earlier. When Sarah finally returned home from deployment, she was awarded the Bronze Star Medal for her actions in combat and her contributions to force protection. The medal citation made no mention of her previous dismissal from sniper school or the discrimination she had faced. Instead, it focused on her courage, skill, and dedication to the mission. At the award ceremony, Sarah's grandfather sat in the front row, his aged hands applauding as his granddaughter received the recognition she had earned through perseverance and exceptional performance. After the ceremony, he pulled her aside with tears in his eyes. "Mijo, you've proven that the best steel really does come from the hottest fire. Your grandmother would be so proud." Sarah hugged her grandfather, thinking about the long journey from that small Texas shooting range to the mountains of Afghanistan. Morrison's attempt to end her military career had instead forged her into a more capable Marine than she could have become through traditional channels. Today, former Gunnery Sergeant Morrison works as a civilian firearms instructor, his Marine Corps career having ended in disgrace. Sarah, now a staff sergeant, continues serving as a senior instructor at the Marine Corps' designated marksman school, where she ensures that no qualified Marine is ever dismissed because of prejudice rather than performance. The hit count that Morrison claimed she could never achieve became a testament to the opportunities that emerge when discrimination gives way to merit-based evaluation. Sarah's story serves as a reminder that the Corps' strength comes not from maintaining outdated barriers, but from recognizing and developing talent wherever it's found. Her dismissed status from sniper school became a footnote in a career defined by exceptional service and leadership. The moments before her etched hit count began were marked by rejection and doubt. The moments after were defined by vindication, respect, and the knowledge that she had proven her worth in the most demanding classroom of all, combat.